Hey, what's good? Whoa, hey, up. Hey, what's good? It's a chaotic day, as you can imagine. Sorry for that little gap of silence there. I'm playing the wrong advert, but it's one of them. I'm leaving it in because we are all about the realness, the rawness on the KSC. And I am Mr. Always Had a Buzz of Every Rhyme I Wrote, and everybody wants to know me like the Wi-Fi code, Kin L himself. Been a bit slack with the podcast, but I've been busy in other areas. In fact, what should we call it? I've been doing my game making shit. And if you sign up to the Patreon, I put up a free game for you to all to play today that's never going to be like officially publicly released. It's officially just for the Patreon people then, because we've got to do these things. I'm not as regular with the podcasting at the minute because I've got other things going on, but I'm making sure that the Patreon people always get a little bit of content that no one else can get. We're keeping it live. In terms of gigs, like my attempt at retiring is going very terribly. I am in the Don't Flop title tournament, and you can catch me live in London on April the 6th at the Engine Rooms Bow, where I'll be battling a guy I've never seen before called Dub T. So, yeah, we're more or less caught up there. Hope you're all good. Podcast will still be happening. Maybe I'm not so regular with the schedule, but I'm going to keep it nice. I'm going to keep it nice. And this one is one I am particularly excited about. It's a returning guest. It was one of my favorite people already and has produced what I'm pretty sure is going to be my favorite book of 2023. Welcome back, the legendary Ariel Powers-Schaub.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, Safe. How are you? How are you? I was just saying before we came on, fantastic little setup in the background here. I really, really like all this.
Thank you. Yeah, it took me a while to decide on how I wanted it to be, but I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. As I say, we're a Plugs Up Top podcast. So, we're going to go straight in and talk about why people should pre-order. Well, the whole podcast is going to be about it, but people need to be pre-ordering Millennial Nasties. Let the people know about that.
Yes, absolutely. So my first book is coming out September 17th of this year. You can pre-order it now. Millennial Nasties is analyzing and critiquing the horror movies of the 2000s that have been largely ignored in horror analysis, particularly torture porn, remakes, and those adjacent slashers of the time. And we're calling them Millennial Nasties now because torture porn wasn't fitting and I didn't like it, so I renamed the subgenre. And you can go to encyclopocalypse.com to pre-order it, or you can go to any of my socials at Ari_Hellraiser. It'll be the pinned post and it'll take you to the pre-order. Sometimes, especially for people outside the US, sometimes it glitches and it says it's sold out. It's not sold out. It's never sold out. So if you have trouble ordering it, just DM me, let me know, and we'll get it sorted.
That's fantastic. It's incredible. Like literally from the moment you mentioned on this podcast that you were writing this book, I was so excited for it because like I kind of had an idea because I follow you writing, obviously, like things you've done on Ghouls and for other publications. And I'm also very familiar with your areas of expertise that mesh nicely with my own personal taste. Mm-hmm. But like this is one, like for the purposes of this podcast, I have read a preview copy and I have also pre-ordered a copy because I want this to live on my shelves. I want the hardcover to live by the books it is discussing because I genuinely believe it's like going to go on to be something important. I'm hitting the bias quite heavily and I realize this, but it is truly fantastic. So I'm just going to kick off by giving you all the big compliments up front.
Thank you so much. It's incredible. I wanted to write it, and so it's incredible that people want to read it. And like, I know that you and I, our tastes have always overlapped on this. And so, I was like, oh, I hope Canel likes it, because if Canel doesn't like it, there's no hope for this book. So it's just incredible to hear that you enjoyed it. And if other people like it, that's just the dream, just having it out there.
Yeah, I truly believe you've done something special here because it feels to me like it's pitched perfectly, because it goes into a lot of detail about a lot of the films covered, and like breaks down thematic things that I haven't thought of. But it's an enjoyable read too. It's not like heavy academic language.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
dismissive in a way that like other things might have been like. So at some point I'm going to get to questions. Now I'm just throwing compliments at you, but
Well, thank you. Yeah, I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted it to be a book that anybody could read, whether you've seen the films or not, whether you like the films or not. I didn't want it to be turning people away by being really dry academic text. And I didn't want it to be too fluffy, like just my thoughts about the movie. It's like I wanted it to hit this middle ground. And it's not a making of, it's not a behind the scenes. Sometimes I include production details if they're relevant to my analysis. I didn't interview any of the filmmakers. It really is just deep dive critical analysis about movies that I generally love. So, hopefully my appreciation for them comes through in the writing too. But I don't shy away from the problems that some of them have either.
it does, like that was going to be my first question, but it turns out like flipping it's one of them, like that's something that you can feel the love for these movies, but you really do get into like some subjects that need to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was going to phrase that as a question, but it's one of them, innit? So was there a lot of that sort of going into it, like because it sort of takes the form of like specific discussions relating to
Mm-hmm.
individual films assembled as a kind of collection with a sort of ongoing theme like
Mm-hmm.
running through it. Was there much thought about like a particular tone you wanted to hit before you started getting into it?
Yeah. So I wanted to, it initially was just going to be a book about the Saw franchise. And
Mm,
then I was realizing how much I wanted to say about the influence the Saw franchise had on other movies. And also realizing that other movies hadn't been written about that much either from this time period. So I was like, okay, I can widen my scope and write about more. But then what's my point? What's the point am I making? I'm not just writing, fluff about movies that I like. And so it started with a huge list of movies that I had to narrow down because you can't write about everything. And I started grouping them into movies that I thought had similar themes and watching them back to back and seeing what stuck out to me. And so the tone of the book is very much like it's critical, it's analytical, it's not reviews, it's more deep dives, and so I wanted it to be, here's the good and the bad, here's where we were coming from at the time. There's a lot of historical perspective about what was going on at the time in the world that made us, especially for the American movies, like what was influencing Americans at the time and how did that influence cinema and go in a cycle.
mm.
So I wanted people to feel like they were reading a piece of historical analysis about movies that we love.
Yeah, and I certainly think you've achieved that. Like, and I quite like the sort of the way that you sort of grouped, what we call it, different films into like sub genres,
Mm.
because they are there, and like as soon as I saw them presented to me, it all made sense. So, like, was that something you did beforehand? That kind of grouping and assembling the different films?
Yes, I had a really intense outline for this book before I
Mm,
started writing it. And kind of the writing process was just watching these movies over and over
mm,
again and sort of getting my thoughts together, which, that's fun. That's good research. But as I started to decide what I wanted to cover and group them together, I had to decide like, if I'm putting these two movies together, what am I saying they have in common and what's my point about that? So I had like a post-it note outline on my wall for a while of this movie's going here in this section and this is going to be called that. Um yeah, so that helped me when I started writing. I knew exactly where I was going.
yeah, it was fascinating to me. Like, I'm gonna stop talking about how much of a good time I had, reading this book. But
I'm so glad. I'm so
yeah,
thrilled.
like, what do you call it? I don't know if I told you the context, but it was one sitting. It was one setting, like, and I'm not a massive reader of books generally. Like, you know, I read a lot in terms of articles and things, but I'm not like read one thing for one time. But I read this whole book in a single sitting, traveling to Bristol, like one go, like, and this wasn't because I was trying to read it in one go or because I had time to fill. It was because I started reading the first bit and just got hooked in. And it's worth talking about how you like started off with it as like being strictly about the Saw franchise, because the first section of the book is pretty much a Saw section. Flipping, that must have felt pretty good because you must have done easy 30 hours of podcasting on Saw last October.
I have talked so much about the Saw movies. I like hours upon hours. I think I calculated it once and it was like a works week amount of time at least. But the Saw section in the book was actually the hardest for me to write because I felt like it was so high stakes to me, you know, like
Yeah.
I was like, I'm too close to this. And so that was the part I put down and picked up the most and like went back to and like edited it and tore it up a lot. So it's there, but that was a labor of love. Some of the other chapters just came together a little bit easier for me, but I think I was in my head about the Saw chapters.
Yeah, I think because, like, you know, it's so many films to write about, and there's so much that went on with those films. Like, you've kind of got to like sort of stick to the script, and like flipping like because it's a lot of information to fit in.
Yes.
But whereas with some of the other chapters, that I feel like they allowed you to sort of like get a bit more free with it, and that's where we get a lot more of the historical context of the times rather than the individual films. So are there like any that you particularly enjoyed talking about?
I loved the home invasion chapter, Lock Your Doors, where I talked about the strangers and the collector. Partly because I love those two movies, but also because I think they're both really good examples of taking that fear and showing it in a really different way. Like they're really different movies, but they both have the same fear at the heart of them. I also loved writing Single Trapped Female, which covered P2 and captivity, because you know, we're used to watching, like, I think especially coming up to the 2000s, there were so many slashers with final girls. And so we were used to seeing women in peril in horror movies and surviving. But it was this idea of the trapped woman, specifically in both of those movies, trapped by a man who has designs on what he's going to do with her and her trying to get out. And I thought that that was just a really interesting way to look at women survivors in horror movies that hadn't been done as much before. So those two were a lot of fun to write. The Final Destination chapter was a lot of fun to write just because those movies are so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. I hear what you're saying about the sort of women in captivity thing, because I think that is something that has always existed, but like particularly in that era, it became a thing because this is very much an era when we've gone from the big budget Dawson's Creek people like horror films to like something that's conveying people's very real fears in a sort of historical context. And like that Captivity's one I'm a particularly big fan of. I love both the movies, but it's like that's like where the fear gets most grounded, because like you know, it's like even with home evasion you're dealing with something that could happen, but with those things you're dealing with an actual danger that could happen to any female identifying person on at any time, like and we're going from, you know, it's as far removed from anything fantastical as there can be, and that sort of represents the real switch in the era.
Yeah, exactly. You know, some of the movies, particularly Final Destination, has a supernatural element to it, and some of the others you could consider if they do or don't, like where some of the franchises go, like Hatchet, kind of supernatural, the way the killer keeps coming back. But most of the movies in this era and covered in my book are about human on human violence. And that was definitely a big part of the fear at the time, especially coming out of the US. So there was a lot of fear of the other, people who are different from us or perceived to be different from us. What are people going to do to my family? Can I protect my family? At the time, there was also a lot of economic insecurity. So you've got the safety concerns along with financial concerns, and it's just this big pot of all kinds of fear of what could happen to you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, particularly the financial concerns, because obviously, what you call it, like I was working for a like banking data analysis firm in like 2007,
Mhm.
which is when the credit crunch happened and the housing
Yeah.
collapse and all these things. So it's quite interesting that that's something that happened partway through this movement.
Mhm.
Do you think
Yes.
that affected the sort of films that were either side of it?
I think so. I mean, economic insecurity is always going to be a relevant theme to a lot of
Mm,
audience members just because a lot of us have gone through with that, but it became a really global fear around, 2007, 2008. And so the movies that come before that don't touch on that as much, but the movies that come after it definitely becomes there's a class component in a lot of them. And so whether it is directly commenting on the financial crisis or not, there's this idea of class being a divider between who can survive and who can't.
yeah, what you call it? I think it's quite interesting with something like The Collector, for
Mhm.
example,
Yeah.
which is obviously back end of the era kind of thing. But like I think it might have been started production beforehand, but it certainly
Mhm.
hits different in the era in the part of the decade when it
Yeah.
lands.
Absolutely. Right, because that movie is all about someone desperate for money trying to rob someone who has more than enough,
Mm,
and someone getting in the middle of that. Like, the class concerns are, very apparent throughout The Collector, whether they were meant to be or not.
mm. Yeah, it's certainly I feel like I should be I'm not trying to like ask questions that are answered in the book, but like one thing I really want to know is what music were you bumping while you were writing this, like because we're new metal era.
I know. My answer is so boring and disappointing.
Mm,
Um, because I can't really listen to new metal while I write, although that
yeah.
would have been so on theme. I listen to a lot of rain sounds,
Mm.
stormy background noise.
Yeah,
Such a boring answer.
like that's what are you like bumping different kinds of sounds like when you're not writing but in the time period when you have written it though, because I find like what I'll listen to while I'm creating something is different to like what I'll listen to when I'm on a walk on that day, like, and I know I'm going to go back and
Absolutely.
do some creating.
Absolutely. I mean, I mostly live my life in 90s R&B. I think that's where music peaked, and I don't stray outside that very much. But when I do, it's usually within the realm of R&B.
Yeah, flipping like there's like there was like a flipping actual golden era of R&B then.
Oh my
Like
gosh. Telling me. Yeah.
I I've had this discussion with my mate Danny McLaughlin from the Get Onto This podcast a lot. That what should we call it? The best era when just like everything in the chart was actually also an all-time banger might have been 2004 or
Hmm.
2003.
I mean, I do like a lot of music from that time too. Like the 90s influence on early 2000s hip hop and R&B was very strong.
Yeah, I feel like that's the time when people were still rapping hard, but we were getting like really, we were getting like the beats were things you could dance to,
Yes. Yes.
like what should we call it, like flipping. We're in the era of the Neptunes before Pharrell being really annoying, like we're
Yes.
we're flipping. We're in the golden era of Timberland doing good shit.
Yes, producing everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things like I could go off on a complete divergence now, like. But what you call it? It is like interesting. Like obviously, like the music's just great and could be listened to at any time. But like, was that like what you call it? Something like when you were going around with your headphones on, doing what you're doing throughout the day, like bumping a bit of 90s R&B. Are you getting into the headspace of the time of these films? Like,
I did, and I actually did start listening to more new metal again as I was rewatching these movies and enjoying the soundtracks. I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I really liked this."
Mm.
So I was watching these movies a lot, listening to the music to get into the headspace, and then I
Mm.
had to have a lot of dedicated time sitting down and writing where I was just writing, writing, writing. So, it's like I really had to prepare my brain to do that thing.
Yeah, flipping it. It's like it's something you've really got to do when you're trying to create something great. You've kind of got to like budget time for doing
Oh,
things
yes.
other than creating. Like to have that head on you. Like,
Yep. I it I was watching movies at weird times of the day. I would get up early to write before work. I would take a Saturday and just go to the library and just write. I really did have to budget time to get this done, or I never would have.
yeah, yeah, and like what I'm quite interested in is like because like I say read the whole book in one sitting. And I think I've like the only film that I hadn't watched in it recently, and in fact I haven't watched it at all, was Joyride 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is,
Mm.
it's special. It's definitely of a time. It's actually got a pretty different vibe from Joyride from the first film, just because it's a little bit meaner, it's a little bit
Mm.
nastier, there's more overt, like, torture in it. Um, so I like it for what it is, but it's certainly not, like, you have to
Yeah.
rush out and find it.
Yeah. While you were rewatching these things, I know it's like stuff that's quite in your circulation,
Mhm.
but are there any films that like your opinion massively changed on? Is there anything you suddenly found like, oh, this is way better than I thought it was?
Yeah, the Dawn of the Dead remake,
Mm.
forgot how great that was, or maybe I just didn't like, maybe my opinion just changed. It's more of an action movie.
Mm.
It's an action horror, but that was visually great to watch. And kind of in the opposite direction, I rewatching The Hills Have Eyes over and over again, I was like, "I'm gonna not watch this movie for a while." Like, it's not
Mm.
that my opinion went down on it, but I just don't think it's as fun as some of the other ones, and so I was just like, I'm gonna leave this one alone for a while."
Yeah, it's flipping very because I think like it's one of those that I don't really watch regularly at all.
Yeah.
But like I kind of have the memory that it's like really good, and I
Mhm.
kind of go with that. Like, and I don't really sit down and say, right, I'm going to watch a film now and watch Hills Have Eyes remake. And
Yeah.
like that's quite interesting because like a lot of these films were very much dismissed as disposable. It was one of the big criticisms,
Yep.
and like what your book really does is show that not all of them are, but it's kind of interesting that one of the most mainstream accepted ones that you can watch on Disney Plus in the UK right now is one of the ones that kind of it doesn't stand up to rewatching and scrutiny to the same degree.
Which one is that?
Hills Have Eyes remake.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Disney in the UK.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it was trying to watch all these movies was a little bit of a hunt. Some of them are so readily available on streaming. Some of them I owned. Some of them I bought because I didn't yet own them. Some of them I had to go to weird corners of the internet to try to watch. And then the other thing you run into during this time period is there are so many different versions of some of these films because there'll be like unrated cuts and director's cuts and if they were straight to DVD but then later got a different release. So I'd be trying to find, a specific version of a film to watch and I mean, I think that's kind of fun, but
Yeah.
it was a bit of work.
Yeah, it's one of those things like that kind of thing is fun when you don't have a deadline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We're not
it's
trying
good
to.
trying to find every version of something, but
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, can you tell us if there was any particular like fun bits of crate digging? Did you uncover anything that you weren't expecting to find when you went looking?
So one of the thing that felt that way the most to me comes through at the end of the book. I
Mm,
have a chart. I have an
mm,
infographic, and it's called the 6 degrees of Soperation,
mm.
and I'm very proud of that name.
Yeah, it's
Because
brilliant.
thank you. It's cheesy, but it works. I started to notice how many people are involved in the same movies all across.
Mm,
Like, this person directed and did cinematography here and did production here, and this actor is in these 5 movies. And I was just like, this whole decade is just a bunch of the same people from Hollywood. And so I started to actually look to try to find as many connections as I could, and then it became a game for myself
mm.
where I wanted to connect them all back to the Saw franchise in 6 moves or less. And I was able to do that, but that took a lot of digging on IMDb.
Yeah, flipping it. It's like I feel like you're like the sort of millennial nasties equivalent of the sort of films for this era. You're the equivalent of like those guys that try and find every like sample that De La Soul used on like 3 feet high
Yes.
and rising, and you brought a new degree of digging which carries its own creativity into this like undocumented area.
I hope so. And, at first I was kind of nervous. I was like, well, what are people going to tell me I missed? What are going to people disagree with me about? But like, that's great. Like, let's have more discussion of these films. If someone disagrees with what I wrote or thinks I totally missed something, write more about these movies, because the whole reason I started writing is because I wanted to read analysis of certain films and I couldn't find very much.
Mm.
So if this can kickstart a bunch of debates, I think that's great.
Yeah, I saw someone on like Twitter and Blue Sky today, like literally just thanking you because flipping finally someone has written about this from a real place that isn't like some academic paper that charges like $90 for a PDF.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible to have strangers coming out of the woodwork to thank me. And I'm just like, thank you. Like, thank you for reading it. Thank you for caring about this. Like, I just feel like there's a hunger right now to talk about these kind of movies. Um, we've been away from the time period enough that people can look back at it and sort of see it as a whole. And so it's been, this year's the 20th anniversary of Saw. I think people are feeling ready to talk about this era.
Yeah, yeah. You've definitely nailed the timing and all. Like, I've got to say that. Like, I know, like, as we sort of go through the book, like, there's like I say, there's a lot of historical context stuff in that, which there has to be, like, and about how like different things that like kind of like weren't really acceptable, but you could put in a film
Mhm.
were happening at the time, and it's kind of interesting how a lot of it relates to like use of language and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah. The amount of slurs and just even not even slurs, but just like things you wouldn't
Mm,
see or hear in a movie anymore, and for good reason. And
mm,
whatever, if people want to say we got too woke, whatever. But like, just the the language we used in the 2000s, like, it really was a different time. It really was. Like, people would say things and think that they weren't being bigoted, and we can look back at it and go, "Oh, we know now that that is bigoted and we won't say that anymore." But it was just a different world. Like, I think if when younger people maybe watch movies from this era, they might be shocked by some of the things that were considered acceptable, but that's what it was.
yeah, flipping it does need to like like we did Dope Flop a comedy gig in Bristol recently, so I was working with some comedians and like they were asking me about battle rap and like how it's
Mhm.
changed. Like I mentioned, like there's certain like terms and like attitudes that couldn't be that weren't used now.
Yeah.
And like he was like, oh, so was the kind of some kind of censorship that came in, and like there wasn't. The truth is, society just changed. You know, it
Yeah.
used to be you could say like certain LGBT slur,
Right.
and people would start laughing in the crowd, and like
Mhm.
it's been a long time since people laugh at that shit. So, like, I
Yeah.
think that's something that like that's missed by what we call it, like all these people who bring in the like, oh, things have changed because of woke. Like, no, society's changed.
Right. And that's always been true. Like society has always updated and changed. Like even in the 2000s when we were using those words, there were words that we would never dream of using that our
Mm.
parents had. So it's like this is a normal amount of updating language and attitudes.
Yeah. So, I got uh hang on, I've done the question about like what really surprised you. Like, is there any like real like films that turned out to be a lot deeper than you remember them being?
Hmm. That's a good one. I remember being surprised how much I could write about House of Wax
Mm,
because you think it's just a slasher remake of the time, but that movie has a lot in there. It's got sibling relationships, it's got a queer subtext, it's got a controlling relationship, family dynamics, and plus on top of that, we have the whole cultural phenomenon that was Paris Hilton. So
mm.
I was really surprised how much I decided to write about House of Wax. And then the other one that surprised me that I included was Repo the Genetic Opera. I think that movie doesn't get nearly enough love, but that was another one where I thought the family dynamics were exceptionally deep and that, gets overlooked as a horror musical.
Yeah, like flipping House of Wax. I watched that 6 times in the last 6 months. Like,
It's so
uh,
good.
yeah, what should we call it? 3 of them were because I did a podcast talking about it
Yeah, you were
with
on
the
Drunken
Drunken
Horror.
Horror
Mhm.
crew, but it's like I find it interesting that that one landed right at the end of the decade, and it seems to encapsulate so much about that decade.
Mhm. Yes. There's it's got, the final girl in the white tank top, which was definitely
Mm,
its own
yeah.
subgenre of the time. Um, it's got really nasty, like gory, gruesome stuff on screen, which is wonderful. Like some of the kills are great. You've got skin peeling away, you've got a pit of body parts. So it's a movie that definitely takes a lot of inspiration from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but updates it for a really nasty decade, even, in different ways than the Texas Chainsaw remake did.
Yeah, and like but at the same time it's like you mentioned like how really well written the characters were in terms of their relationships,
Mhm.
like at this point like we're towards the end of the millennial nasty cycle when and what we found with like the slasher cycle, the new slasher
Mhm.
cycle, is that towards the end of what should we call it, these sort of cycles, that's when things become the most disposable, and that's when
Mhm.
the characters that are being written become the most disposable. And like this one has like really well written characters and relationships
It
that matter.
does. Yeah. Yeah, a good example of that becoming disposable kind of at the end is the Final Destination, the 4th one.
Mm,
That one, they're just churning out killing
yeah.
teenagers in supernatural ways. That one loses a lot of the charm earlier in the franchise. And even though I love my Saw series, like the 7th one that came out in 2010, that one has kind of worn itself out. So like you do get to the end where the tropes and the trends start to
Mm,
wear out a little bit and we need to do something else, and that's always going to be true in art is always going to change and evolve as it needs to update over time. And so you can see at the end of the decade for the most part we were kind of losing our footing a little bit, but there were movies like The Collector that came out in 2009 that had been dreamt up earlier and finally got to come out, and so those stay really strong.
yeah, it's incredible. I do think you absolutely nailed it with the term millennial nasties.
Thank
We've
you.
always needed a good term, and it's like we're the sort of like first shit post generation that were
Yeah.
cool using something that was used as an insult to a genre as its name. But we finally got. I feel we finally got a name for it with this. Like, how long did it take you to come up with the name? Because, like,
It
obviously,
took
this
a
is the
while.
whole thing that wraps it all together.
Yeah. I brainstormed because I decided I wanted to write this book and I decided what I want my point to be. And I started looking at all the films I wanted to include. And I was like, I need a title that encapsulates this. And I just brainstormed a bunch of different stuff.
Mm.
And then the day I hit Millennial Nasties, I was like, this is it. This is
Yeah.
the one. No more talk. Like, this is what it is. And like, that made me really feel like it was coming together. Like I was like, I do have something here.
Yeah, flipping it. It feels like that where you've hit on something that's indisputably correct. No one's going to come with a note on that. No one can come with a note on that.
Mhm.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
was very proud of it. And like you could argue that some films are millennial nasties that I didn't include. Again, I think that's like a wonderful thing to talk about. Like let's talk about these movies more. Let's add more to the conversation. You know, some movies are both slashers and home invasions. So some movie could be a millennial nasty and something else. And we needed a term to stand up to
Mm.
the new French extremity, which is its
Yeah.
own thing and which I did not write about because I am not an expert in that. And that has a lot of good analysis on it already. But I was like, we need a term that is that strong.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and you flipping nailed it. That was the thing. Like as you say, the sort of new French extremity movement. Like, it's weird. It's sort of like an inverse snobbery in
Right.
that
Yes.
the opposite side of like, oh, anyone who watches what should we call it, foreign films is pretentious, which is
Mhm.
trope we're seeing more and more now with TikTok, with people saying, actually, I only watch dumb shit that's churned out by the Disney Corporation, and everyone else who
Congrats.
doesn't is more
Yeah.
pretentious than me. We do have a flip side where people will kind of intellectualize things just because they're not in
Mhm.
English. And like,
Yes.
do you think that's why sort of the new French extremity movement kind of got that acceptance way before the millennial nasties?
I do think so. So my understanding, what I've read about New French Extremity, is that it was part of France's national identity to say, we don't just do artsy stuff. We don't just do, boring stuff. We can do the nasty stuff too. And so they started to put that out. But then because we can't stop ourselves from thinking French stuff is fancy, it was like, "Oh, this nastiness on screen must have more to it because it's in French." I do think probably a lot of native English speakers thought like that. There's an excellent book that I recommend for everybody. It's called The New French Extremity, and it's by Alexandra West. And it was a huge inspiration for me. And if you like French Extremity, it is the text to get on it.
Yeah, flipping Alex West, flipping great writer,
Oh,
flipping
yeah.
well worth checking out. Like, knows her shit and loves
Yes.
cat.
Yeah,
But
she does.
yeah, like flipping, I think it's like it's such an interesting example in the between these two genres, because of course, like it's like one of the key sort of new French extremity movies is Haute Tension.
Yes.
Flipping High Tension, or Switchblade Romance, as it was known in the UK, because we're too thick to have two films called High Tension exist, and Mel Brooks made one. But that recently got re-released. I got the 4K of that,
Mhm.
and I was just thinking how interesting it is that a lot of these films that were derided with when the Millennial Nasties were referred to as torture porn are also made by Alexander Aja, who
Right.
directed this film that's being intellectualized in one language, and then when he does other work in English, it's derided. Like,
Yes, he directed the Hills Have Eyes remake, and he either I think he co-wrote P2. He was
mm,
involved in P2 somehow. But it's like, you don't hear those put in the same sentence as high tension. And I'm not saying you necessarily should. They're different movies, but it is
Mm.
sort of like if he does something in French, we respect it. But if he does it in English, it's torture porn.
It
No, no,
really is,
guys.
because like fucking like High Tension isn't a fucking intellectual movie. Like it's a
No,
it's a a very good, but
it's
at the same
incredible.
time very stupid slasher movie.
Yeah.
But it's in
Yeah.
French.
So that makes it smart.
Yeah, like so that's what I say. That is why we need the book Millennial Nasties. Like, yeah, but I think that's sort of like all the questions I had on the book,
Yeah.
because I don't really want to like dive into detail on things, because I want people to go out and buy this and enjoy this as much as I did. Like put it this way, already got it, ordered it anyway because I need the hardcover. Like, flipping, are you excited for that? Like, flipping,
Oh my God. I cannot wait to hold it in my hands. I think I'll
mm,
probably cry the day my copy
mm.
comes. And you can get hardcover, paperback, audiobook, or ebook. So whatever path you choose, that's all an option. And all over the world, if you have any trouble ordering it, just DM me and we'll get it sorted out.
Cool, boss. We'll get that sorted. And so like before we go, because obviously you've been very busy with this, but I know you're always active. So what you been watching lately that's popping? Because
Oh
like
man.
surely you must have been wanting to watch some things that are not Millennial Nasties after all this intense work.
It was kinda nice. Once the book was written, I was like, "I can watch other things now."
Yeah.
But I just started rewatching the Paranormal Activity franchise
Mm.
because we're about to dive into that on the Pod and the Pendulum. We're about to
Mm.
start the Paranormal Activity franchise, and I'm super excited for that. Very, very different vibe, even though, the first one was filmed in 2006.
Mm.
Total different vibe from Millennial Nasties, so I've been enjoying those. And I've also been every now and then when I just want some bullshit on in the background, I've been going to Tubi and just doing whatever 2000s horror movie I can find and just sort of like filling in the blanks. Like I finally watched Creep,
Mm.
the 2004 Creep from the UK about
Oh
the
yeah, the British
tunnels.
one.
Yeah. I watched that one and I was like, "Oh, this is so good. How have I missed this?"
Yeah.
So I've been discovering some stuff like that too.
Yeah, that's a very fun film. Like,
That's really good. I couldn't believe I'd never seen it.
yeah, it's one of those that crept through the gap, because like it was weird. There was a couple of like, I mean, sort of like the Descent comes out in
Mhm.
Millennial Nasty Times,
Yep.
but there was like a few other bits that came out of the UK when we weren't really putting much out at all that were decent.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love The Descent. I didn't think it fit as a millennial nasty. So, like, there's definitely movies that I thought about where I was like,
Mm,
"No, that's a different thing. I'm not gonna put
mm.
that in here." So, I did have to be a little discerning, but The Descent is incredible.
Oh hell yeah! Flipping it's one of them like flipping. It's an interesting thing about that we say about like this being the right time for things to come back around. Because I don't own a copy of The Descent, but it's normally been like on a streaming platform somewhere.
Mhm.
But I was thinking like I don't know if I want to buy a copy now,
Yeah,
because flipping it's the era when they're all getting flipping like swanky re-releases.
that's true. Maybe just
Yeah.
wait for the beautiful 4K to come out.
Yeah, it's happened to me so many times where
Oh,
I've like,
yeah.
I
Me
haven't seen
too.
this in ages, like, and then the better version comes out, like. But I have confirmed
Always.
there's not going to be like swanky descent in the very near future. So yeah, if people want to buy a copy of the descent, buy a copy of the descent.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that I actually don't own it either, and I need to make sure I get the original ending and not the ending they fed to Americans because they thought we couldn't handle it.
yeah. I heard a podcast like it was a lot of people that had seen the American ending first and then saw the British ending, the original ending, as adults. And
Mhm.
I found it interesting that a lot of them were just saying, "Oh no, the American ending is better."
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, that does make you think about this whole sort of era, like how much of it are like are people looking at it through their nostalgia lens?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's always gonna be something, and that's okay as long as you admit it to yourself, like, the movies we saw and loved first are always gonna have a special place in our heart, even if they're not, objectively that special, and that is okay,
Mm.
but you need to recognize that's where that's coming from sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Good example of that with me is like my first copy of Army of Darkness, the Evil Dead film, was
Mhm.
like the X rental video, which had the depressing ending in the
Okay.
UK, and like generally people think the Hail to the King ending is just much better, and like I've struggled to reconcile with that over the
Hmm.
years, like
Yeah.
because like I didn't see that end until much later on. So like flipping I keep thinking the original ending is the apocalypse ending, and that's something that's really tattooed in my brain. Like I can't see how people prefer the other one.
Yeah, it's just what you see first and what you fall in love with first, and it just sticks.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, like, is there anything like recent you've seen that's popping?
Oh, man. I feel like I'm kinda behind on new horror movies. I just watched Dune the other day. That was
Mm.
great. Oh, you know what I did watch, Canal? The other weekend, I committed to watching all of the I Spit on Your Grave remakes
Oh.
and sequels.
Mm.
Incredible. Um, I loved I Spit on Your Grave too. That was my favorite one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so the I Spit on Your Grave from 2010 is a pretty standard remake, it's good, and
Mm.
then the third one is a direct sequel to that, and so that's very
Yeah.
interesting, those are good, consumed together, but the second one stands alone, and it goes a lot harder, the torture is more, like,
Yeah.
on screen, so, like, there's a couple really nasty ones, so I loved I Spit on Your Grave too, so
Yeah.
that would be my most recent one, I think.
Yeah. That's a mad one because like I Spit on Your Grave 3 is like I say it's my favorite one,
Mhm.
but that's because it's the only one that I can just watch it like generally.
Okay, yeah,
Because
yeah.
what's it call it? Obviously, like that's the continued story of the first one, like whereas the
Mhm.
other ones are very much rape revenge. And
Yes,
like if I'm watching a rape revenge film, it's because I've got to like be in a certain headspace and that to
absolutely.
experience. But like I Spit on Your Grave 3, Vengeance is Mine, is like basically it's basically female death wish, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an exploration of her psychology after the fact, and so that's super interesting because you don't often get to see that in
Mm,
rape revenge films, like what happens
mm.
years later, so definitely one to check out for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah, flipping it. Do you know what? Like flipping, I've got the box set sitting back here because I
I
thought
need to
when I
get
need
it.
to watch those films, I want the good copy and like the really snazzy box set of all the films was on sale for like 20 quid. So I thought, yeah, I'm getting that. Need it for the collection. But out of all the DVDs in my house, out of all the Blu-rays in my house, there's discs in that have not come out the box yet.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, they are rough watches.
Yeah, flipping they're not things you watch for entertainment generally.
Right, right,
And
yeah.
like you say, it's something that you've like you hadn't watched them until recently, like
Mhm.
flipping, you got to be very clear on your headspace with such things, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. I was like, okay, I can do this. I have the time. I have the mental energy. I can
Mm.
pause them if I want to. So, yeah, I was like, now is the time to do it.
Yeah. Fucking hell. Well, excellent fucking scenes. Not excellent scenes of rape. I phrased that very badly and timed it very badly,
We
but
knew what you meant.
nonetheless,
We knew what you meant.
yeah. Flipping. I'm reminded of like I think there was like some Q&A at some film festival years back where Quentin Tarantino was being interviewed, and like he was being asked about some film, and he said it had the best rape scene that he'd ever seen,
Yikes. I
and
mean,
he meant most powerful, but
right. Like, there's
but
definitely a way to talk about this is an effective rape scene or this is well shot or whatever. Don't use the word best. Maybe just stay
yeah.
away from that. Yeah.
It's one of them. I've got a lot of respect for these films, like, but like I kind of like, you know, obviously because I have a lot of Ghouls Mag people on, and like, you know, I get a lot of people to get the different pictures, but I've never done any kind of like rape revenge episodes on this because for one thing, I'm not the best person to talk about them, and admittedly, you know, if I did, it'd be with a guest. But for another thing, I'm fucking terrified of just phrasing something really wrong because I'm a
Yeah.
stupid fucking person.
It could go sideways. It could go sideways. It's okay to just decide not to do it. That's okay.
Yeah. Is right, is right. So I reckon we'll wrap it up on those notes. So we'll drop the plug. Obviously, people know about the book, and there will be links for the pre-order in the comments.
Perfect.
If you not the comments, the flipping description. I don't know. I don't even know my YouTube terms anymore. And people don't even watch my YouTube. They only listen to the audio episodes. But nonetheless, so yeah, Ari, do you want to hit them with the plugs?
Yeah. So follow me on all the socials at Ari_Hellraiser. That's where you will find links to all my writing and podcasting and everything I'm up to.
Excellent scenes, and all the socials still Ari_Hellraiser on everything, is it?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This has been I say again, like flipping. It's going to be I don't read many books, but it's going to be my book of the year. Let's be honest.
Thank you
no
so
one else
much.
is putting out something that I care so much about written this well. It's just not going to happen in under a year.
I'm so glad.
Thank you for producing this amazing piece of work, and thank you for being an amazing guest. I'm Kinnell.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Kinnell. This has been Sinister Cinema. Peace.